for a Friday, headed into a Saturday. Let's see, what did I do today? Well, I'll tell you what, we went up to the transmitter site for the new Kiva, which will be, and I'm going to announce it here, KNAK AM 1240. Yeah, that's the official call letters we're going for. As long as nobody tells anybody, I guess we can close that door. But anyway, so I went up there today, and I'll tell you, talk about wet. I'll tell you what now. It was wet, and I mean really wet up there today. I mean, it was so wet up there, I saw ducks with raincoats on. No, I mean, I went up there, and of course it decided up there at the high elevation of 9,000 feet above sea level that all of a sudden it was wanting to snow. Snow! Snow! In the middle of May? The weekend of Memorial Day weekend? Which, by the way, and I don't mind throwing this in just for you Yankees out there that think you know it all, Memorial Day was actually conceived in Georgia. That's right, Southern people. And you think you're so damn smart. That's what some of you think anyway. I know you aren't. I'm serious. Half of you are so damn stupid it couldn't. Yeah, never mind. I won't get into that. Sorry about that. Nah, that's a people observation, and not everybody's stupid. There are some exceptions to the rule, but we're getting dumber. Well, maybe it's not dumber. Maybe that's not the word. Maybe it's along the lines of being, how should we say it? Maybe what it actually is more like along the lines of, instead of being stupid, maybe you're just numb. Maybe instead of dumber, it's number. In other words, you turned your brain off. And I don't blame a lot of people for that. I really don't. You know, you get up in the morning, you hear about all the crap that goes on overnight, and then you go, really? Just shut my brain off. I'm going back to sleep. As long as whatever the hell it is doesn't invade my four walls, who cares? And that is pretty much what a lot of people think. Who cares? There's a lot of people that do not want to get involved in anything. I don't care what it is. They just don't. They just don't want to get involved. The bad part about that kind of a concept is this. If you don't get involved, you're part of the solution. Or part of the problem, not the solution. And that's not necessarily a good thing, although some people might think it's a bad thing. But it's like a lady I know that manages an apartment complex here. She's getting mad about some sort of an oil refinery or some sort of refining facility near her house. And apparently the county commissioners and to a certain degree the city council said, we don't want that here. It might actually create a job for somebody. So she's talking about forming a committee to recall the bastard. Well, but at least she's getting involved. She's not just sitting there saying, well, I guess that's something I can't fix. She's getting in to fix it. Politics is one of those, what do you want to call it? Those things that a lot of people don't want to get into. But if we don't get involved with what's going on in our world, how are you going to change it? Are you going to wait for somebody else to do it? I don't know. You can't wait for people to do anything. If you want something done, go do it yourself. Isn't that always the way we've always said it? If you want something done, do it yourself. Well, and if you want it done it right, you really need to get up and go do it yourself. My mom used to have another saying that used to go along with that. Actually, well, Mom had one, and then Uncle Jesse had one. Uncle Jesse used to say the field across the road is only greener until you have to mow it. And then, of course, Mom always used to say the best way to get on your feet is to get off your butt, which is something that I always preach. I mean, I always think, you know, people, if you really want to improve the world, if you want to improve your world, go do something about it. Don't expect the taxpayers, don't expect a whole bunch of people to jump in there and say, "Ha! I'll let somebody else do it." Why should somebody else do it? It should be you. Get up and do something about it. That's how you fix problems. It'd be just as bad as me and when we set up the radio gig years ago. We could have given up. We could have said, well, the rest of these blasted radio stations, TV stations, and all this other stuff ain't paying attention to us, so maybe we just should have given up. That was with 10 members inside of a little itty-bitty hangar in Gooding, Idaho, in when the hell did we do that? 2004. And we didn't. We said, hey, this looks nice. I mean, the Hazard Nights, now known as the Knights of Anarchy, we formed an organization or a spinoff or sister, brother, whatever, subsidiary, whatever you want to call it. I always used to call it subsidiary. And then thus I'd always spell it wrong. And that isn't the way it's spelled or pronounced, but who cares? Anyway, so we met there at the hangar there in Gooding, and we said, hey, why should Air Power Unlimited over in Jerome be the only ones that does this? Why should they be the only one that restores and replenishes old warbirds and helicopters? And especially put aside the Air Force, let's do things like Marine and Navy aircraft. I mean, nothing against the Confederate Air Force. I think they do a really good job, although now they call it the Commemorative Air Force, but it's the same creature. But everybody always concentrates on the United States Air Force, and there's nothing wrong with that. But people don't realize that it takes a lot more skill and a lot more ambition to land an F-18 Hornet on a carrier floating out in the middle of the Pacific or any other place than it does landing an F-16 on dry land. The dry land is not going to move. It's not moving constantly. It's easier to see. A carrier at night in an ocean atmosphere, that can kind of be a little bit on the tricky side, don't you see? And so therefore you have to you're looking down there and you got a little postage stamp and it's floating there and it's kind of sideways and you got a little bitty strip and you got to call the ball and make sure you get in the middle and make sure you trap that third wire, otherwise you're taking a drink. I've never seen anybody trap at least the first or second one. It's usually the third. But then you're, like I said, you're grabbing a hold of your shorts and thinking, I hope I make this. But, that's the kind of stuff. So, yeah, so that's what we did. But we could have said, well, why doesn't somebody else do this? But we didn't. We said, hey, we're freshly discharged aviators. Why shouldn't we commemorate what the hell we did? Nobody else was doing it. To date, nobody still is doing it outside of us. So, anyway. Yes, 21:35 hours in your evening, 43 degrees. This is Airwolf FM for, like I said, it's a Friday. Flying into a Saturday morning. Of course, there's a lot of people that don't realize how much I do in one day, and so they got to criticize. We got a guy that gets on the HazzardAyre bandwidth, or on our site there on live stream, that always has to cuss out the dead airspace and so on and so forth. I like to see him do all the things I do in one day and see if he can put up with it. Welcome in. Yes, it is I. I am inside your radio for it is a Wednesday. Are you still, like Paul J was saying earlier, is people still calling it Tuesday or Monday? I don't know. When you take out one day of the week, it discombobbles everything else that you're doing. So, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, so how y'all doing out there? It is a early morning, Wednesday morning. Thanks to everybody over at WRROX over there in Clarksdale, one of our affiliate stations, Paul J. Wilson. You know, me and Paul J. started in the same station at about the same time. In fact, if the truth be known, not bragging anything here, so don't take it that way. Paul J. couldn't have passed his first FCC license test if it hadn't been for me doing some coaching and teaching. Oh, yes. Yeah, we went and took the test together, and I worked news, he worked the board. Then eventually he decided to take a hike, and well, the rest of it was history, but that was, me and Paul J's been, we talk back and forth all the time, so, yeah, and it was mutually beneficial that we kind of combined both areas of the country, so he's in Clarksdale, and we're out here in Wyoming. Imagine that. 0536 in your morning, 48 degrees in Montpelier, 41 degrees here in Evanston for an early morning. I don't know. I got a question because there is no clear-cut thing. I looked over all kinds of stuff on Google, which is starting to become extremely limited anymore. Unless somebody pays for a result for a search, you're not going to find the damn thing. Nothing. I don't fault anybody for trying to make $1. I don't. What gets me is when people get greedy. There's a difference between making a living, and preferably a healthy one, and the idea of strictly being in a situation to where you're so damn greedy that common sense and quality service or product or whatever goes out the door. Because after a while, you're going to get busted. But anyway, the long and short of it is, I went on there because it's happening more and more because with my testicles. Seems like they're hanging down a little bit further than what they used to. Okay, so every time I sit down just the wrong way, I kind of squish them. And it hurts. Trust me, guys, you know what I'm talking about. Women, they don't understand it necessarily. But when those nuts get stuffed or get hurt, it hurts. It goes beyond hurt. It's pain. And so I was on Google trying to find something that says or would tell me what happens to them when you do that. Not one damn thing. Except for the fact of a whole bunch of stuff of, well, your testicles hurt, you're going to get cancer or something like that. Well, hell yeah, you're going to do that too. But what about if you just squash them? Is there any, outside of having somebody handy to rub them, what else do you do? You sure in hell can't sit at the console in front of somebody massaging your nuts. I know, some people do. Hey, Stern, lend me one of your paper, will you, for a minute? Come here. You want a job? Yeah. It is, like I said, it's a Wednesday. And I'm trying to get everything cleaned up for the proposed arrival, mind you, of Cody, who's supposed to be up here Friday. Now, normally I would be so thrilled that actually having somebody, and I am, if she actually shows, see. Thing is, I've been promised somebody, or by other people, women especially, that was going to show up to do something, but never ever shows up. Or there's an excuse, or there's something that the boyfriend doesn't like it, or so on and so on and so on. And so you get to a point to where you say, wait a minute. Don't count your chickens before they're hatched. I just don't. Until somebody's actually sitting in here. And this goes back to, like I said, was talking about the other night. And it's why that is. I don't mind paying somebody, or the club doesn't. I don't pay them. Hell, shit, I don't make a damn thing doing this. But still, the long and short of it is, the club pays the wages. Per my recommendation. Okay? But anyway. So, if she shows up, and it's a big if, or anybody shows up, the club set up this thing after a couple of deals, one in Hayburn and one in Burley. And then shortly after, Nurse Goodbody quit us to go on to doing her psychobabble, psychiatry, PSR, whatever that is that she does. But the fact is, that's good stuff. I'm getting used to it. It's not quite my
Dew Shine, but Dew Shine's got too much sugar in it. It makes me want to go to sleep instead of stay awake, and I've been trying to do that for about 6 hours. Anyway, the long and short of it is, the club set up the thing to where there's at least a 10 to 20 to 30 day probationary period or prospect period. That way, we know that somebody is going to show the next month and the month after that and so on and so forth, continued employment here. And that is just the way it is. We don't pay no wages for the first 10 to 20 days. I want to make sure that somebody's going to park their ass here and do quality radio and actually find somebody that actually will walk in the door, sit down, prepared to do a show. After they see how he put things together, which shouldn't take very long, and so far in my stewardship over this radio gig for the club, I have had, outside of the original crew that we had in Hazard, the only one that I actually remember that actually could do something with only about maybe a week or two of instruction was Robin Whitaker, Miss DixieDiesel of 1993. When she showed up, yeah, I'm getting to that. Anyway, when she showed up, she didn't exactly wear what I would call form-fitting outfit, okay? I knew there was a package underneath there, but I didn't know how to, pursue that. What we had done, I think me and Monkey's son was out doing something one day, and I thought, oh, what the hell, I got a little extra money. I'm going to see if this works. So I went in, and this was back when Bill Whittam before he took it over as a radio show, there was a printed paper in Rupert called Farm Times. And it was a little farm publication, not much more, not a hell of a lot of editorial, but mostly ads. So I went in there, and I think I paid maybe $10 for the damn thing to run for a couple of weeks. Well, the first week, I didn't get a lot of traffic over it. There was a few that actually thought they could do something but chickened out. But then finally Robin walked in. And within 2 weeks of minor instruction, and I really didn't go into anything really in depth, she could sit down and read copy and put herself into the role of a female sidekick in a studio doing a radio program. And this is before I ever even saw Stern, never knew anything about Robin Quivers or anything like that. I just thought a male-female in there to be able to bounce off each other ideas might be a hell of an idea. I know, one of the things that we did it first. Anyway, so we was in there. And then we started talking about the toe kissing shit and all that, and the nylons and all that, because it was KTOW then. And so the long and short of it is, she would purposely wear enough stuff to where, she'd come in and just, without even so much as even a request. Because it wasn't, the studio we had at that shop on Oneida Boulevard, I think it's a body shop now. But at the time, we actually sat down and did that. But Robin was one of these kind of people that everything was telepathic. I mean, she'd come in, she could actually read copy, and I wouldn't even have to be in the studio with her to do that. And she'd read the whole damn copy, and I could instantly just throw music underneath it for a music bed or for the commercial. And we jived on the same rhythm all the damn time. Now, that does not mean that there wasn't one instance that I took her home one day waiting for her old man. We started talking, and things got a little bit heated, and I don't mean in a bad way. But anyway, I could have, but I don't do that. When I'm tied to somebody else, and it seems like that's when it always happens, I'll go years and years and months without seeing anybody. The minute I got somebody on the fly, shit, or on the hook, all of a sudden everything wants me. And it's like, shit, where the hell were you when I was single, bitch? But anyway, but no, we could have done something then. The thing is, now, no. I never knew what the hell happened. There was a fight between her and Monkey, and she went up to Boise with her fiance. I guess they're married now. Who knows? And we moved to Utah, and I never have figured out what the hell happened to her afterwards. I wish I did, because I'd love to have her back again. Because me and her, I could be sitting at home. We lived in Paul, and Paul to Rupert is like maybe 15 miles at the very most. And I'd sit over there, and I'd be thinking of something for the next day's show, and so on and so forth. And instantaneously, bing, she'd be on the damn phone, and it would be the same damn thing that I was thinking about every time. Or she'd be thinking something. And all of a sudden, I'd sit up in bed going, shit, this is an idea. And then we'd both somehow end up at the studio at 2:30, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning producing commercials. And I mean, sometimes without any heat. I mean, there was a couple of times we went in there and the turntables were literally frozen. But anyway, the long and short of it is, her and I worked together fairly well. And she's always the one that I always hold as a example of what I expect out of everybody. She is the standard, And then, of course, Nurse Goodbody came into being with me in 2010, latter part of 2009, early part of 2010. And it was winter. Now, this also took a hell of a lot of dedication onto the idea of what the hell we were doing. She wasn't so much into it for the money, she was into it for the quality of the product. And I appreciate people like that, who can actually come in and do what needs to be done on air and whatnot, to where it's quality. It's not just hustled through to get it in and get it out and done. I know, that's kind of, some guys, that's how you do sex. Whip it in, whip it out, wipe it off, and worry. It's time for child support. But, no, also, that's just the way things are. So, do you think, I don't know. But with this new one, yeah, she supposedly, we've been talking back and forth for a whole week and so on and so forth. Is she really going to show up? I don't know. Even if she does, is she going to stay here long enough to do something? Is she going to be, I don't want to do this shit and split? Am I going to make it, And that's part of the reason why I don't just go flogging down here to a new facility, and well, we're almost into it anyway, but the long and short of it is that's why up to this point I haven't gotten excited about it, because I don't do anything until I see something in my hand and I have it. It's kind of like renting or buying a piece of property or a building or a house or something. I can remember when Monkey and I, not me and Monkey, shit, can you do either one of those today? I don't know. Anyway, so we was down in Layton, and this was the first time that I heard about it. And, of course, my cousin Bud wasn't too happy about the concept, and that's what kind of pilfered. There was so much that he did that if he was still on Earth, I'd go kick his ass. I think my mom and dad are pretty much handling that now. But anyway, we was down there in Layton, and notice came that the place in Hazard that mom and dad and I built and where everything started from was available either to rent or to buy. And we had everything pretty much done except for dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And I had shut things down. I had made arrangements other ways and so on and so forth until Bud said, "Nah, you ain't going to do this." Well, the guy got tired of it and rented it to somebody else. There's another story on that, and some other day I'll get into it. But maybe I might still this morning. But anyway, the long and short of it is that one thing taught me something. It ain't yours until you got the key in your hand and a piece of paper signed. Once that's done, they're committed, you're committed, and you go. That's when you make stuff happen. And it's the same thing that I feel when it comes to new employees, to radio gig, all of it. I know what I do. Okay, I do. I know what I do. I know what I'm capable of. I know my limitations. A man's got to know his limitations. But I know what I can do and what I can't do. There was a line in Star Trek Into Darkness. And it goes something to the effect of, I know what I want to do. Now I've got to do what I have to do. Something to that effect. And that's pretty much it. I mean, people don't realize this. There was a time when doing 14, 17-hour days, sometimes more, sometimes less, for 6 days in a row, going 2 months, building a hot rod for an upcoming show, running tow truck for 3 months straight. This is as fast as you could pick them up, you're dropping them. And all that stuff. I could do that then. But we're talking 20, 25 years ago, maybe 30. And as it is right now, with my diabetes, with my bad back, and my migraines, if I can put up, with doing 5 days a week, taking 2 days, which is usually Tuesdays and Thursdays, to work the shop, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays do the radio gig, and then try to fill in some stuff during the weekend. I'm doing damn good anymore doing that. But that's pretty much where it is. And there are some days, and don't even bother me from noon on. I don't care who it is. Selena Gomez could come to the front door bare ass naked and say, let's go have sex in the afternoon, and unless she jumped on me and did it for me, that'd be a treat, wouldn't it? But unless she did it for me, I would say, go away. I need my sleep. I know that would be a dream. Now, there are some things that have never been done in my studio, although they should have been, considering that I got accused of it several times. And I have. But there's things that I've never done. Now, Stern says he did. Or maybe that was just strictly for the movie and it was dramatic and for, that was the drama of his movie. Creative process. But I've never had sex or a blowjob or anything like that in the studio. Thought about it a few times with a few of them, but never have actually done it. About the only time that anything close to those things happened is the foot kissing and that part of it. To exemplify TOWTOE. And then there was one time, and I can't remember, I think her name was Sherry or Sheridan or something to that effect. It worked before it got all screwed up. Up there at KUPI, up there at Idaho Falls. And I was in there doing something, and it required a kiss of some sort. And I had to demonstrate to this little gal that was doing the production for it. There used to be a guy up there that went by the handle of Melody Mike, the original. And Melody Mike did a midnight to 6 in the morning truckers show. And I was up there at that time, I was just about completely out of the radio biz. I was a consultant for the club and organization for it. But I didn't do a daily show or a nightly show or nothing. All I did was tow and twist wrenches. And I was up there cutting a commercial. And I said, this is what this is supposed to sound like. And so it involved either a French kiss as opposed to just whatever you want to call it, a hunt and peck. And I said, there's a difference between the way these things sound. And I said, there's a difference between kissing toes that are bare and the ones that have got nylons on. It's the same way you can tell somebody speaking that has a beard or not. You can tell by the vocal quality. You can actually, if you listen careful, you can hear it. Simon and Garfunkel was that way. The ones of them that had, and James Taylor did that way. You could hear the bristles and the mustache in the song, or at least the way the air was, or the sound waves that was coming into the microphone. And I thought, okay, but outside of that, I've never actually physically manhandled anybody in studio. And yet, I've been accused of that I don't know how many damn times. Oh, something really bad's going to happen in that damn house. Bullshit. Some people are so damn paranoid that they can't even see straight. Now, I grant you, I understand the difference in cultures and areas and so on and so forth. Let's face it. What can be done in New York City, Washington, D.C., or Los Angeles, and maybe, if you're real lucky, Arizona, in places, you can't do on air, or anything else for that matter, and I shouldn't say this bad. Everybody always accuses them of that, but There's also the situation of the Mormons and or at least the religious community. You know, oh no, he did something nasty, nasty, nasty. I'm just going to go to the church social and tell on him. Ah, bullshit. Has nothing to do with it. It really doesn't. I mean, I've never done that. And yet, it's always been accused. Always been accused. And so you start scratching your head and going, is this what the hell I signed up for? Are we limited anymore to our creativity because of political pressure? Or is there some other reason? I mean, really, is there some other reason? I would really like to know. Because the way I look at it is, so far, and I'm not saying it is this way all places, but what I've noticed so far is there's all too damn many people who say, no, I don't do this, no, I don't do that. And let me give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I think so, but about 2 weeks ago, I went up to the Legal here. That's a little kind of a bar I got here in Evanston. And I think 2 or 3 clubs besides ours showed up there, and everybody was having a pretty good time. And there was some of the gals in there that I knew from other places in town that we have approached to be either camera for commercials to promote HazzardAyre as well as our shop and tow service. And I saw that says, no, I wouldn't dress like that. I won't do that. Blah, 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 blah. Blah-bitty, 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 blah. For a lot of reasons. And yet, here the same single girls are, women, whatever, in this bar. One had short shorts on that was so damn short. Okay? I ain't shitting you. Dark hair and all white, right? When she sat down in the booth, right? And instead of just crossing her legs like she should have been, she's sitting there almost spread eagle, and I'm thinking, okay, so far, okay. You could actually see the string of her pad, and you're thinking, and yet you won't even do a commercial. It always makes me wonder. They'll go out and parade. In other words, a lot of these women will do that. They'll go out and they'll parade their bodies all over the place to meet eligible male corpuscles. Either just for a quick nightstand or maybe even something long term. I'm getting to that in a second. And yet, you approach them to be on commercials and it's like, I can't do that. But yet they can go out there and parade themselves around on display like meat in a meat case. Really? And then, of course, there's my old lady. I was going to say ex-old lady. It almost was tonight, and I'll get to that in a second. But the long and short of it is, these people, I mean, these women, they say they'll do something and they don't do nothing. And yet, I'm supposed to just hang around waiting for them to actually make up their mind? Bullshit. Give me a downright, absolute 100% biker babe who will come in and do a show, and I'll be tickled to death. Somebody from our community. I'm not talking Evanston, I'm talking the biker community. I think more and more that the biker community is more accepting of obscure, out-of-the-box people and is willing to put their arms around people more than, the ones that probably wouldn't have otherwise. It's just, you have to start asking yourself, what part of this do we not get? What part of this what does a man have to do? Now, I understand part of the reluctance here. And it goes back to something that happened here in Evanston long before I got here. Long before I even so much as conceived the idea of ever coming back up here. Because let's face it, when I left with Tammy back in 2006, outside of twice to come up to see Nate, I never ever thought in my life that I would ever come back to Evanston, Wyoming. It wasn't just the temperature weather outside being cold, it was the whole damn town. Even then, we had a hell of a time trying to get somebody to do something. Maybe, I don't know what they make slinging drinks. I guess a bartender makes pretty good money. Between whatever the base wage is and what they're making on tips, I think it's got to be about $4 or $5 an hour now, plus whatever they're making in tips. But it seems like more of them would rather do that than anything else. But then I was overhearing this one gal talking to some friend of hers about some guy that she'd met that finally got tired of her and was split and just up and left. And I got to thinking, and I always try to ask the guy that's involved, because anytime some guy or some gal comes up to you and says, "Oh, my ex-boyfriend, he never understood me. He didn't love me. Blah, 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 blah." And you start thinking, too bad. What an idiot. But then, and this is kind of what experience has taught me, why not go talk to the guy that either she dumped or had to finally leave just to save his sanity? What the hell kind of shit did she put up? Did she give to him that finally made him say, "Fuck this, I'm getting the hell out of here"? There's always something like that. I mean, because women, they're strange. Out in public, they're sweet little things, they just never ever do anything wrong. Bull stuff. Cow stuff, horse stuff, I don't care. Still manure. And so that's what happens. All these women go out here and they say, Well, he treated me so bad and all that stuff. I want to go talk to the dude. Now, several things could happen there. You could get smacked in the head, him saying, what the hell you seeing my old lady for? Because maybe he's got still a little bit of affection for it. But overall, I want to know what the hell kind of shit she put him through. Before I say, yeah, I'm going to stay there. I'm going to be that. So, and it's kind of like when you go buy a vehicle, especially a brand new one, and even more so with a used one. But you go into the dealer, and you got some white shirt, blue shirt with a damn tie, suited guy with real slick pants and some sort of stupid looking shoe that's real nice and polished. And he'll come over and put his arm around you and all this kind of crap. Oh, something on that second. And he'll say, well, golly gee whiz, glad you come in here to buy this here car. You know, this thing has just got the best everything, this blah, blah, blah. Baloney. I want to go in the back and find the service guy, not just the service writer or service manager. I want to talk to the mechanic that's twisting wrenches on this thing and ask him simple stuff like, if the starter goes out, how much of a deal and how big of a pain in the ass is it to get it out of there? How does it really run? Because he's already done his diagnostic on it, especially on a used car. And he can tell you if that thing's shitty or not. Even if it does cost you maybe taking him out to lunch and buying him a beer and a hot dog someplace. Go ask the mechanic that's got to work on that thing or has worked on it. And say, now, hey, what about this? Now, if he gives you a green light, then you pretty much got a pretty good deal to go in and get a good deal. But I don't do nothing like buy a vehicle and I've been skunked a few times for not believing in the guy that was selling it. Rather than take it to some independent repair shop and said, look this thing over and tell me if it's full of shit or if it's still, if it's still good. And it's the same way with the woman. I want to talk to the guy that she divorced or the guy that she broke up with and say, what kind of a pain in the ass was she? That's what I want to know. If he says, well, pretty much it was my fault, we were running into some money problems, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's not too bad. You can deal with that. But if he says, nah, she's a user, she was out all night, she was doing this, she was doing that, she was doing this, well, okay. Let me know about what the hell she did. Sometimes you got to go on blind faith. Kind of like Monkey. That was a weird deal. Correct from the word go. But I knew her husband. She was just supposed to work for us. And all of a sudden, she got all interested in me. I don't know why. I mean, good gosh, I'm not that good looking. I finally found out why. I was the magic carpet that took her out of a bad situation so she could go find another one. And I'm not saying that everything was her fault. I mean, I fuggled up when I got conned into getting a little bit of extra, better than a happy ending with a little bit more of a gratuity. It's a tip, bitch. Why not just call it a tip? It was a gratuity on a damn back massage at some stupid-ass motel down in Bountiful when I was still driving big truck. Pulled in there, and oh, my back hurt. I mean, it really did. I mean, I'd been backslapped all day. I was running bobtail, and that thing was just a backslapping me all the way in. And I finally had a layover for 2 days. And I should have never ever said that thing had a malfunction because that got inspected. No, it didn't have no malfunction. Because I stayed a little bit longer on the third day because I was dreading going home. And you know when things are bad at home and you're not getting the kind of attention that you need, it doesn't take much for somebody else to spark that fire. You know, if things are a little bit too rough at home, you go, is there something better out here? Now, granted, it's all, you know, like Uncle Jesse used to say, you know, he used to, when he said that, you know, the grass across the street may be greener until you have to mow it. But occasionally you do find that field that's been fertilized a hell of a lot more than the one you got. And so you have to start thinking, And it's the same way with a relationship. You know, you get in with a good woman and all that and so on and so forth. But when she actually says, you know, is this something that we want to do? You know, is this something where you're at? You have to ask, is this where I want to be? Is this who I want to be with? Sometimes you're just best to be by yourself. I mean, don't get connected to any of them. I've thought about that several times. This next go around with Shelly and me, Shelly and I and Shelly, I don't know. Anyway, is my last hoorah when it comes to being tied down to anybody. I mean, if this one don't work, fuck it. I'm done with it. I don't care. I'll take pictures of gals. I'll sit there and cast them in productions. I'll put them on the air. I don't care. That's fine. They can work with me in studios or in the studio. That's fine. But unless this thing cooks, that's it. And it's pretty much the same way with the radio station. I love what we do here. I really do. I love being able to keep you out there who are pushing 18 wheels up and down the interstate company every single night. And I wish I still had the stamina and the ability to do that every single night. I really do. I mean, I really do. But anymore, I just don't have that much energy. When my bedtime comes around, it comes around and it comes down pretty hard. And anymore, and I used to think that there was, when somebody said they were going to come work for you, they'd work for you. If somebody made the commitment that they were going to fix something, they would fix something. Or help you to do something. Point you in the right direction. Because when it comes to some of these newer vehicles, especially big trucks and their computerized systems, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't have the testing equipment. I just don't. That's why we scaled back down to doing strictly bikes and nothing much more than a pickup truck. And even then, we cut off the actual year that we work on anything to the year 2000. Anything newer than that, I won't touch it. I just won't. I don't care about fuel injection. I don't care about brain boxes and idiot boxes and LED this and all that crap. That ain't going to happen. It just won't. Anyway, I'm going to finish this thing up. We will be back in here at 1 o'clock this afternoon. That is 1300 hours Mountain Standard Time. And we'll do some stuff then. But we're not done for this morning. This is DixieDiesel, HazzardAyre, Coast to Coast FM.
Hey truckers, before you head off to bed and to keep you company during your long haul all night long, tune into DX, KDXC 1620 AM for Maximum Overdrive Radio with my dear friend the Road Wolf. Followed by Eric Harley and Joe Kelly overnight only on the Midnight Cowboy Trucking Network.
Common Sense Coalition Talk Radio, where you'll find straight talk from people with good old common sense.
I trust your opinion.
And now, for your host, she's putting sense back into nonsense.
Absolute insanity.
Well, you can hear me on the radio. You want to turn me me stereo. You can sing along by the play my song. Now you don't leave on, let's crank it up.
And now, your host, Beth Ann.
And I welcome you today to CSC Talker Radio. It is my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to be here with you today. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and I hope if you were working, you had a good time working, and if you were one of those that was able to celebrate the day off, I hope you did that as well, had a great time. We had a good time. We didn't have much of the family in. I took in a couple of little grandkids that I watched on Sunday evening, and Monday we had a good time, barbecued a little bit, and that was about it. I haven't even told my producer this yet, but my granddaughter decided to celebrate Labor Day with labor and gave me a great-granddaughter yesterday morning about 4:30 in the morning, and they're all doing really well. She put a whole new meaning to Labor Day, so we're pretty excited. I have with me a guest today, and I'm gonna bring him on board here in just a few minutes, but I told you last week I was going to get him on. We were going to talk about Trump's speech and the 10 points of immigration. But I got to thinking as I was watching over the weekend, some of the news, I tried to kind of hide from it over the weekend, but I did try to watch a little bit because I wanted to see what was being said. And it interests me whenever they interview the president of Mexico or the ex-president of Mexico. And I was wondering, why did they never ask them, why is the border only open to the north? Nobody ever asks that question. As the president and the ex-president of Mexico, they scream insults at Donald Trump when they're not in front of him, and swearing that they will never pay for a wall, and claiming that without their immigrants coming here, Americans wouldn't be able to pluck chickens, scoop manure, or pick vegetables. Well, you know that's ridiculous, and the reasons are ridiculous, and they're not true. And yes, we have employers that take advantage of the illegal immigrants, and that's exactly what they do. They take advantage of them. Maybe, just maybe, the presidents of Mexico should try to figure out why their people have to go north to work. Maybe, just maybe, they ought to think about that just a little bit. Why so many Americans cannot see the lies that are being spewed out daily is totally beyond me. I just can't comprehend it. Why is it we only talk about the southern border as well, and not the planes flying into the nation? Well, now we talk about it here because we get Mike Cutler on, and we talk about that. The expired visas, the criminals from other nations, not just the southern border. Common sense, not politics, needs to be put into the arena. Many believe that the harsh, bigoted words, that's their words, not mine, their description, not mine, of Donald Trump sound like finally somebody who's trying to stand the ground. Nothing Donald Trump proposed is new, not really. They're already on the books, they're already there. The INS and the other officers, they're not allowed to do their job, and so we have an invasion crisis. Sanctuary cities say one thing: we care more about outsiders than about our own citizens or our own families. That is not America. That is not putting America first. And I bring to you today Mike Cutler, who you know, he's been on several times, is a retired INS special agent. I like to call him senior special agent. I like to call him our super agent. And we're going to talk about Trump's speech and some of the other things that don't get said. And Mike didn't know that I was going to throw that out there about the border only being open one direction. But I want to bring Mike on, and we're going to talk about what the nonsense that's going on in the media. Mike, welcome to CSC Talk Radio. I hope you had a great Labor Day weekend.
Thank you. We did. Congratulations, or as we say in Brooklyn, mazel tov on being a great grandma.
I know. I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I should admit that or not, but I will.
Well, you had your first child when you were 9 years old,
That's
correct?
true. That's true.
Okay, so we're good. I actually spent Sunday evening with my son, his wife, and our 22-month-old granddaughter.
Aww.
And my goodness gracious, it is a privilege to be a grandparent.
It is.
I wish my parents had the ability to have done that. And I have to tell you, and you're a grandma, so you know, it is just so exciting to spend time with her. And when you get those big hugs and a little kiss on the cheek, it's a MasterCard moment. It's priceless. Truly.
It is priceless. And I had two little ones. My number 4 son, I have 5 of those boys. My number 4 son was at an event. He was preaching at a kind of an all-night youth thing. And so I kept his 2 little ones, and then they came in and crashed when they got done with their youth event. But I kept the 2 little ones, and we had a pretty good time. Ruthie is 9, and Seth is 6, and Seth is kind of one of those, we call him Sethisms. He's always got some kind of a quip coming out of his mouth, and it's really pretty comical when you stop and think about it.
Well, I've got a Seth also. My oldest son, in fact, the dad of my granddaughter is Seth. So there.
Does he have Sethisms?
Oh, you don't even...
Not anymore?
Well, but I think it's somewhere in his job description that says be a pain in the neck or some other part.
Well, they are a lot of fun, and they can be a challenge at times, but they are a lot of fun. And, you know, they're part of the reason we're so concerned about our nation and why we do the things that we do. And
absolutely, this is about them.
It is about them. I mean, it's kind of, you know, we've pretty much lived our lives. I'm not done giving it up, but, I mean, we have done, you know, they still have a full lifetime ahead of them, you know, and I'm always telling the listeners out there who are very patient with me that, you know, we're here, we need to be concerned about it for our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren, and now I got one of them. So,
well, I'll tell you what, we have to go one step further. I don't believe you can be a good parent in this dangerous, turbulent world if you're not involved in politics. And that doesn't mean running for office, but it means taking citizenship seriously, holding politicians accountable. both parties are so corrupt
Oh, my
that
goodness.
if there was real justice in our government, you could make a racketeering case against both major political parties.
You know, when I was
and
reading...
it's our fault.
It is
We've
our
allowed
fault.
it to get to this point.
We have been lazy.
Yes, and foolish. And when you talked about the questions people don't ask, you know, I write for a bunch of websites. I write for a Front Page magazine sponsored by the terrific David Horowitz Freedom Center. I write for Californians for Population Stabilization. Big mouthful of words, but it's capsweb.org, CAPS. I also write for The Social Contract. And I have an article coming out, in fact, in the fall edition about immigration fraud. And they asked me for a small article. I was supposed to be 8 pages or so. I gave them 43 pages. It developed a life of its own. It's going to be a standalone booklet that they're going to be putting out and posting on the web. But for the most recent edition, the summer, I did the spring edition, not the summer edition. I wrote about the questions we need to ask. You know, Voltaire said you judge a person's intelligence not by his answers so much as by the questions that he asks. And so here's a couple of quick questions for your audience. If we have a shortage of computer programmers and scientists and engineers, why is it that major corporations and some public utilities and criminal outfits like Disney, in my judgment, criminal for what they've done, are firing hundreds of thousands of American programmers and then turning to Congress and saying to them, we need more H-1B visas because we don't have enough workers, after they've destroyed the careers and the incomes of middle-class, hard-working American professionals who worked for them for decades in many cases, and adding some to the wound, demanding that their fired employees stay on to train their replacements from other countries if they want their severance packages. How does that square with common sense?
It doesn't. But it does square with corruption and greed.
It
does square with that. We're going into a break. Your calls are welcome. We're opening the lines. What's your opinion on what's being said? These 10 points, you know, of Donald Trump, they're taking a lot of heat. And really, it's nothing new, is it, Mike? Those 10 points really aren't anything new.
Absolutely not. And it's a holistic approach, and that's why I was so happy, because he's always talking about the wall. He talked about lots more than the wall. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Absolutely. 877-895-5410 is the number to call. That's 877-895-5410. I'm visiting today. We have as our guest Michael Cutler, and he is a retired INS super special agent, and we will be right back. It's time to go back to school with Tupperware. That's right, Tupperware can help you get your student ready for school, whether it's kindergarten, elementary, high school, or off to college. The convenience of airtight, watertight containers can store just about anything you need to keep protected. School lunches, eco water bottles, which are great if you're a walker, a jogger, or a biker too. Soup mugs, cereal bowls, sandwich containers. Store those pens and pencils. Keep your makeup stored, carrying soap and shower needs back and forth, Q-tips, cotton balls, containers for everything. Tupperware is versatile, efficient, affordable, and economical. Stow, go, store, stay. Keep your items neat, organized, safe, and dry. Tupperware is going back to school with you. Let Beth Mitchell be your Tupperware consultant. Remember, Tupperware stands by their lifetime guarantee. Contact Beth today at bethmitchell.my.tupperware.com or just give her a call at 573-690-4924.
David Keaston, a patriot and good friend of CSC Talk Radio, has published a small booklet, A Constitutional Plan to Fix America. It says this will take 5 years with a market-based approach. Freedom, liberty, prosperity. David has kindly made these booklets available to Beth Ann so that she can bring them to you. To purchase 1 to 9 booklets, $3 each. To purchase 10 or more, $2 each. Shipping and handling included. Today, our nation faces the most difficult threat in over 200 years. The United States of America's very existence is in great danger. The wholesale destruction of our national currency and the standard of living, which all Americans have come to know, love, and unfortunately take for granted. Let's fix America. In ordering this booklet, you're also helping CSC Talk Radio. America working together to fix America and bring America America home. Just $3 each. 10 or more, only $2 each. P.O. Box 73, California, Missouri, 65018.
Gold and silver have been the foundation of wealth for individuals and nations the world over. The history of man is packed with coins, jewelry, and artifacts that have spoken to the intrinsic value esteemed in gold and silver due to their rarity, durability, and usefulness. I'm proud to call Melody Cederstrom a friend and honor Discount Gold and Silver Trading is a loyal sponsor of CSE Talk Radio, a Christian company founded on the principles of truth and honesty. Melody provides quality products, quality service, and competitive pricing. Let Melody's over 20 years of experience in gold and silver trading be your investment guide. From precious metals purchases to precious metals IRA. Whether you want to buy or sell, Melody and her team at Discount Gold and Silver will assist you and make sure you get the best deals possible. Call Melody and tell her thank you for sponsoring CSE Talk Radio, and then let her know you want her to be your gold and silver dealer. Visit Melody online at dgscoins.com or just give her a call at 1-800-375-4188. That's 1-800-375-4188. And we have returned. You're listening to CSC Talk Radio. This is Beth Ann, and I'm visiting today with Michael Cutler, and we are talking about immigration and Trump's speech. I kind of wanted to get your opinion on his speech. You know, there's been a lot of controversy, a lot of talk about, well, he was softening and now he's not, and he had two of them that were mad, that quit, that were on the kind of on an advisory board or a listening board or whatever for Donald Trump. But I don't think, nothing that he put down on these 10 points is anything new, and I believe they were all common sense. It's all about putting America and Americans first, and the safety of Americans first. He talked about not just the wall. The wall's kind of a symbolic thing right now. I know they're going to actually build a physical wall. They're going to do something, and they're also going to have some technology that's in that to check for, I guess, drones and things above and below the ground and you know, other things that they're going to be checking for. But it's also the expired visas. He talked about the refugees. He talked about those that have been here for so very long. And you mentioned this in your article. You know, and they want to tug at Americans, which, you know, Americans are very compassionate and concerned and caring people. As a rule, we are. And we are a generous people. And it's not that we want to cause any pain or hurt anyone else, but they have done something illegal. They have taken advantage of the United States, just crossing the border and doing as they have done illegally. But, you know, we aren't going to lack compassion because we want to put America first and Americans first. That's just being smart. And so I kind of wanted you to kind of address his speech, and I'm just going to kind of turn it over to you. Are you there, Mike? I think we might have lost Mike. Well, if I can, while we're trying to get Mike back on the line, we need to go through those points on Donald Trump's speech again. We talked about them last week. But one is the wall. He talked about building the wall. We will build the wall, and it's going to be a beautiful wall, he says. You know how he always elaborates on it. And the second was the catch and release, because they've been doing so much of that, where they catch the criminals, and instead of doing anything with them, they just turn them back out. Now, those of us who actually have law enforcement in our families know exactly what's going on with that. We don't know why, but we know what's going on. And before we lost Mike, before that break, when he was talking about what Disney has done, they fired all these American workers, and then they want to hire foreign workers to do the same job, and yes, it'll be for less money. So we have Mike back. Mike apologized. I don't know what happened to the phone lines. We're just going to blame it on Tuesday on a Monday. That's what we're going to blame it on.
Oh.
But what I was saying, and you missed the whole thing, I was turning the show over to you. I wanted you to elaborate. I was getting ready to...
I did hear you. You couldn't hear me, but I could hear you, Beth Ann.
I see. Okay.
We had a one-way conversation. My wife and I occasionally have some of those.
Well, I hope we both got our points made. But I wanted to turn it over to you about Donald Trump's speech, because it's really nothing new, but I think it's common sense, and I think it's the right thing that we need to do.
That's right. But here's the thing, though. You know, I just testified before the Indiana State Senate because states are grappling with this issue also.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And our country spends over $14 billion, with a B, $14 billion a year, supposedly securing our borders and conducting inspections at ports of entry. Customs and Border Protection, and I began my 30-year career with the INS as an inspector at Kennedy Airport, and then I became a special agent, and I did that for 26 years. But they employ more than 60,000 people at Customs and Border Protection. If it does not matter how aliens enter the United States, why are we going through what's essentially a charade? You know, I'm going to be in Washington next week to be part of a seminar for the U.S. military where I talk about immigration, border security, national security, and so forth. I'm very happy to work with Alan Freed Associates. I've been with them for well over a decade now. Mm-hmm. And when I drive down from New York to Washington, I take the Jersey Turnpike. I have a choice. I can take Easy Pass or I can take the cash lane. They want to open up, or they have opened up, where immigration's concerned, a third lane that says free, no speed limit. So who in their right mind is going to wait online to give money when you can go free with no speed limit? And those laws aren't just a formality. They're a screening effort. We hear so much about the vetting of the refugees. What's the vetting process for an alien who enters the United States surreptitiously in the dead of night? Chuck Schumer has said that if you trespass on landmarks, it should be a federal crime. You should go to jail for 5 years. But the same Chuck Schumer and his buddies in the Congress say that if you trespass on America, you've somehow earned a path to citizenship. You know, we naturalize more than 1 million, we admit more than 1 million lawful immigrants every year, and naturalize well over 500,000 new citizens every year. It's not that we're not letting anybody in. And what's really happening is that our government is determined to do nothing to impede the flow of foreign workers into the United States or foreign students. So what no one's talking about where Hillary is concerned, and I really want your audience to think about this, because this is super serious. Number one, there would be no interviews and no field investigations, because she has promised, or I like to say that she has threatened, to provide unknown millions of illegal aliens with lawful status. We don't know their identities. We don't know how long they've been here. You know, you hear this on TV, well, if they've been living here for 7 years. You won't know, because they're probably using fake ID, which is why identity theft is the fastest growing white-collar crime in America. They're using multiple false identities. There's no way of knowing when they entered, how they entered, what country they're from, who they're affiliated with, or what their goals were in coming here, whether they're fugitives, whether they've committed heinous crimes in other countries, whether they're here to commit crimes or acts of terror. So now, picture that. Now picture this. If we legalize all these people, and many aren't even here yet, they will claim that they were here and get lawful status. They will again displace more American workers, send more money home. I mean, if you could stop that remittance flow of hundreds of billions of dollars a year being sent by foreign workers, legal and illegal, you could build Trump's fence. But the point is, they will all immediately have the absolute bulletproof right to bring every one of their minor children to America after the fact.
We've never heard anyone
looking at millions of foreign students who cannot speak a word of English, who would suddenly be entering our schools, perhaps as teenagers. What do you do with a 12, 13, 14-year-old child who can't speak a word of English, and now repeat that maybe 5 million times because there's huge families in third world countries? How would our educational system cope with that kind of an onslaught? And no one's talking about it.
Nobody has said that. Nobody has mentioned that that would happen, that is the greatest possibility. And, you know, they act like we're just being such hard-hearted people. And that
let me go beyond that. So let me go beyond that. And I said this in Indiana, and they'll be posting the video. They gave me over an hour at this hearing.
Congratulations.
This nonsense about the Latino voter has got to stop. It is a disgusting form of racism and bigotry. Every American, I don't care if you're black, Jewish, we hear about the Jewish vote, the black vote, the Christian vote, they're balkanizing us by design. Every American, irrespective of religion, race, last name, you name it, want the same basic things. a strong military to keep America's enemies at bay as far from us as possible. We want law enforcement to keep our communities as safe and free of crime as possible. We want the schools to educate our kids, and we want to know that any American who's willing to study hard, work hard, and benefit from a little bit of luck thrown in for good measure can write the next American success story. And I don't care if your last name is Cutler or Goldstein or Johnson or Ramirez. Every American wants that, and they want a double helping for their children and their grandchildren, as we talked about earlier. So what in the world is this notion about the Latino voter, that somehow there's a group of Americans who want lawlessness, who want gangs in their schools, who want drugs flowing across the border, who want foreign competition for their jobs? This is insanity, and this nonsense has got to stop. You know, if law enforcement talked about any group of people the way the journalists, pundits, and pollsters freely talk about Latino voters, they would lose their jobs and perhaps face civil rights lawsuits. Why in the world do we allow these idiots on television lie through their teeth, and why is it that TV, you know, I used to do 15 TV interviews in an average month after 9/11, and we're coming up, hard to believe, on the 15th anniversary of 9/11. Nobody from immigration ever comes on TV these days. It's always pollsters and political consultants. Immigration is always something that they don't want the true professionals to talk about.
No, they don't. They don't want to know. And, you know, we're going into that
the
break.
Mushroom treatment.
Absolutely. We're going into that break, and I want to talk to you a little bit more about what you did professionally as you were taking care of America and Americans. I want to talk about that just a little bit.
Sure.
We're going into a break. Your calls are welcome. The topic today is immigration, illegal and legal. 877-895-5410 is the number to call, and Mike and Beth Ann will be right back.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But these rights are not extended to the precious lives innocently waiting just to be born. Abortion is a lie. Stand up for those who cannot speak out for themselves and join the Red Ribbon Campaign, a gentle yet clear message. Science has proven babies are not just alive, but can feel pain just like you and I. Our nation screams against inhumane treatment of dogs and cruel interrogation tactics of known terrorists, yet as a nation we idly sit by, allowing these helpless lives to be tortured to death. Please support Cries from the Womb. 10 lapel ribbons are only $7, or receive a free lapel ribbon when you purchase a t-shirt for just $20, or a wristband for $5. With 2 or more wristbands, just $3 each. To order, visit csctalkradio.com or P.O. Box 73, California, Missouri 65018. Support Cries from the Womb and be seen, so the unborn can be heard.
CSC Talk Radio's goal is to bring America home. That includes you and your business. Radio is a powerful way to brand your company and increase your profits. Find out how to join CSC Talk Radio, help educate and activate America, and grow your business at the same time. Looking for new customers? Looking to have your business reaching out from sea to shining sea? Advertise with CSC Talk Radio. Believe in your product? Let Beth Ann be your personal spokesperson to properly brand your product and company. It's simple, easy, and affordable. Grow your business, grow common sense, and together we will bring America home. To be a part of CSC Talk Radio, call 573-796-2166. That's 573-796-2166. Or send email to beth@csctalkradio.com.
What every American needs to know about the Quran, the history of Islam and the United States. Bill Federer has done it again. He makes history come to life, and current events all connect that to history. Sultans conquered the 1,000-year-old Byzantine city of Constantinople. Jefferson sent Marines to stop the Muslim Barbary pirates of Algiers and Tripoli. Woodrow Wilson tried saving millions of Americans killed in Turkey. History that affects you and me today. In 2006, Keith Ellison was the first Muslim elected to the U.S. Congress. He swore on a Quran. What does this mean? Educate and activate. We shouldn't form opinion or initiate actions before we know the truth. Purchase your copy of What Every American Needs to Know About the Quran today. Send $22 to CSE Talk Radio, P.O. Box 73, California, Missouri 65018, or order on the website at csctalkradio.com. That's $22 for the history of Islam and the United States.
Wow, did you see that? I think somebody had some work done, like a facelift. No, not Beth Ann, her website. Yep, CSC Talk Radio has had a facelift for sure. A new logo and a new fresh look. Visit csctalkradio.com. CSC Talk Radio is a coalition of conversations between Beth Ann, you, and all America, so the look incorporates all America, from sea to shining sea. Beth Ann is truly in the middle of the nation, reaching out to all America as she continues her journey to bring America home. Join in the conquest for truth on CSC Talk Radio. In the next several months, CSC Talk Radio will be reaching out in different ways to help keep you informed. Get involved and share the education. As always, Beth Ann needs your help and support. Visit the website, support our sponsors, join the show on Facebook, follow Beth Ann on Twitter, contribute as you can. Whether on air, online, or social media, we need all avenues as we bring in the fold and bring America home.
And we have returned. You're listening to CSC Talk Radio. This is Beth Ann. I had one question regarding his 10 points, and I didn't... he was talking about allowing the INS to do their job, as well as maybe training police officers across the nation to help with that. I was wondering what your opinion was on some of that, because I know you guys do some different training, some special training. Are you there, Mike?
Police officers,
yeah,
so that they're able to identify suspected illegal aliens and hold them for immigration. But at the end of the day, immigration has got to respond. And you know, I work for the old INS, now it's ICE. They put them under the Department of Homeland Security. I call it the Department of Homeland Surrender, given the way it's been going.
Yes.
But here's the question. If immigration is under Homeland Security, why? Well, obviously, we're trying to keep the bad guys out of the country. The 9/11 Commission, to which I provided testimony, made clear reference that the first failure of government that enabled the terrorists, not only on 9/11, but they looked at 94 terrorists, including the 9/11 hijackers, in the decade leading up to those attacks. All of 59% committed either visa fraud or immigration benefit fraud. I would argue they all committed visa fraud because they lied when they got their visas. They lied to the inspector at the port of entry. When that inspector asks you, what's the purpose for your visit, I don't think any one of these terrorists said, I'm here to kill people.
No,
they all lied when they entered the United States. This had nothing to do just with the Mexican border. This is the entire immigration system. As you point out, we have 50 border states. But Trump, while he talked so much about the fence or a wall on the border, and I think we need to reinforce the border, but I compare the wall on the border with a wing on an airplane. An airplane without the wing won't fly, but a wing by itself goes nowhere. And Trump talked about enforcing the law from within the interior. And so many journalists went nuts. He was supposed to soften his position. What do they mean by softening his position? Throwing open the doors, allowing people to stay who break in. We don't know who they are or why they're here. They're taking jobs. They're sending money home. What could possibly go wrong? We have sanctuary cities that are guilty of aiding, abetting, encouraging, inducing, harboring, and shielding, which are all elements of a crime under immigration statute that's a felony. I've arrested people for those violations. In New York, we just had a woman killed. She was Muslim. The Islamist community is saying that this was a hate crime. She was killed by a guy from Latin America, from Colombia, who admitted that he killed her. But New York City police is not allowed to tell anybody whether he's here legally or illegally. We are shielding a murderer from detection by immigration. We're doing it openly. Mayor Dumb Blasio, as I call de Blasio, is giving identity documents to illegal aliens, which further helps them embed themselves. This is crazy. And here's the argument we're hearing from everybody. We can't arrest 11 million. What do we do with the ones who are already here? And my answer to that dopey, ridiculous, absurd question is what do the police do with people who speed but don't get caught speeding? You catch as many as you can, and hopefully by being as efficient as possible, you deter people from speeding. You know, after 9/11, New York City's police department was mostly in lower Manhattan because of the wreckage. I mean, if you didn't see it, you can't imagine what happened. The whole city was in a state of shambles because of lower Manhattan. The stench of that cauldron at Ground Zero permeated.
Oh, I kind of lost Mike there. There you are. You're cutting in and out. Mike, I was going to ask you another question.
Yep.
And this was something that Trump touched on. And it's something that's been going around in my head. And I know that you guys have dealt with this. And, of course, they do the catch and release. And then he said, we're going to put them back, and we're going to take them back. Well, what about, and apparently there are lots of instances, when the country they're supposed to go back to refuses to take them?
All right, so there's a couple of things. The Supreme Court decision is known as HazzardAyre. That was the name of a defendant. We can hold them indefinitely in custody if their own governments won't take them, if we can show that they have a pattern of violence and that there's a likelihood they're going to commit more violence. But one of the other things Trump mentioned, and this could be done, is to no longer issue visas to the countries that won't take their criminals back.
Yes.
And say, we're not letting your citizens in. But you see, the reason that's not being done is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that wants this flood of foreign workers, foreign students, and foreign tourists, even if it kills Americans. And thinking about it, you know, the Chamber of Commerce is all about business. I guess they're an advocate for the funeral homes because we're losing an estimated 7,000 people every year to criminal aliens who should not be present in the United States, according to a study that was done by Congressman Steve King.
You know
he told me that I was the reason for the study.
You know what I heard? I heard one of these crazy people that are for this and against Trump. They're Trump haters, so anything he says is going to be wrong. But they made a comment that, well, we have our own citizens killing one another.
Okay, so here's my point.
It's like, why should we make a big deal out of the illegal ones, you know?
Right, so I hear that all the time. So here's the point. Should we stop looking for a cure for cancer because people die of heart attacks and strokes? You take as many of the bad guys off the street as possible. They put Al Capone away for tax evasion, right? Why would we encourage foreign nationals to come here to ply their criminal trades? You know, you got one opportunity for a first impression. The immigration laws serve that first impression. We have now, both parties are responsible for attracting criminals into the United States and terrorists. Why? Because they keep saying we can't deport all the people who are here. And I don't know if you heard what I said because we're having an audio problem today, but I said that we don't have to deport 11 million. What did the police do with people who speed and don't get caught speeding?
I did hear that part.
You stop as many as you can, and you convince people we're serious, and if you're caught, you're in trouble. Right now, we're convincing them that the two parties are tripping over each other, and the only argument is whether or not to give them citizenship. This is an act of national suicide, and it's not about Latinos. I spent years where I didn't arrest a single Spanish-speaking person. I've arrested aliens from just about every country you could imagine across the globe, from Africa, from Europe, from Asia, from the Caribbean, from Canada. This isn't about race or religion. It's about keeping out criminals and spies and terrorists and fugitives and aliens with dangerous diseases, aliens who would likely become a public charge, and Trump spoke about that, and aliens who would displace American workers. Our immigration laws are fundamental, they are common sense, and they are race-free. There is nothing about race, religion, or ethnicity. If it was, I could never have enforced those laws. My family was decimated in the Holocaust. Those laws are eminently fair, and they're supposed to put Americans first. But you know what we've never done, Beth Ann? We've never gotten the kind of resources for interior enforcement of our immigration laws, which is why we have the problem. And this is both parties. Reagan gave us the first amnesty, knowing there was a shortage of agents, and yet they never hired more agents for interior enforcement. And therein has been the critical issue, and Trump is talking about hiring more agents finally.
And letting them do their job.
And letting them do their job.
Now, another thing that he really emphasizes on, and you did in your article, you mentioned heroin, the drugs that are coming across. That is big business, and I still think there's money under the table up there in D.C. I still think there is. Oh, my goodness.
Let me ask you a question, Beth Ann. How many commercials have you seen for cigarettes? And they're very effective. I lost my dad to lung cancer. I can't bear to watch those cigarette commercials. How many heroin commercials have you seen? Or crack commercials? Or methamphetamine commercials have you seen? Isn't that an interesting thought?
Interesting.
If you took the drug money out of Wall Street, out of the banking industry, out of real estate, out of high-end jewelry sales, out of high-end auto sales, they would take a huge hit. They are floating on drug money. There's a great documentary your audience needs to see. It's The Cocaine Cowboys. It shows in the 80s how the Floridian economy went through the roof, fueled by drug money, and the reason was that the drugs were coming through Florida. When the Coast Guard stepped up efforts and our Navy stepped up efforts to intercept the Colombian speedboats with the drugs, then they started to push their drugs through Mexico. See, this is a balloon, and I've said this when I've been before Congress. Immigration is a balloon. It's a sealed system. Squeeze one end, it bulges elsewhere.
Well, let's talk about that when we come in back from this break. We're going into the final break of the hour. Your calls are welcome at 877-895-5410. The topic today is immigration. I'm visiting today with Mike Cutler. And Mike and Beth Ann will be right back.
Did you know that whether you're making a phone call, texting a friend, or checking email, you can be making a difference for CSC Talk Radio? That's right. When you sign up for wireless service from our friends at Affinity 4, not only do you receive affordable rate plans with nationwide coverage on one of America's largest wireless networks, you'll also be supporting CSC Talk Radio through Affinity 4's Give Back program. Affinity 4 Wireless offers a variety of phones from leading manufacturers, and you can choose from individual and shared plans to meet your needs. And you can keep your same phone number. Call 1-800-311-2021 today and let the Affinity 4 customer service team help you select the best plan and phone for your needs. And remember, when you sign up for any of Affinity 4's products and services, a portion of the proceeds will be donated back to CSC Talk Radio. Don't wait. Call today, 1-800-311-2021, and ask about their current wireless promotions, including a free month of service and free phone offers. That's 1-800-311-2021.
Gold and silver have been the foundation of wealth for individuals and nations the world over. The history of man is packed with coins, jewelry, and artifacts that have spoken to the intrinsic value esteemed in gold and silver due to their rarity, durability, and usefulness. I'm proud to call Melody Cedarstrom my friend and honored Discount Gold and Silver Trading is a loyal sponsor of CSC Talk Radio, a Christian company founded on the principles of truth and honesty. Melody provides quality products, quality service, and competitive pricing. Let Melody's over 20 years of experience in gold and silver trading be your investment guide. From precious metals purchases to precious metals IRA. Whether you want to buy or sell, Melody and her team at Discount Gold and Silver will assist you and make sure you get the best deals possible. Call Melody and tell her thank you for sponsoring CSC Talk Radio, and then let her know you want her to be your gold and silver dealer. Visit Melody online at dgscoins.com or just give her a call at 1-800-375-4188. That's 1-800-375-4188.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But these rights are not extended to the precious lives innocently waiting just to be born. Abortion is a lie. Stand up for those who cannot speak out for themselves and join the Red Ribbon Campaign, a gentle yet clear message. Science has proven babies are not just alive, but can feel pain just like you and I. Our nation screams against inhumane treatment of dogs and cruel interrogation tactics of known terrorists, yet as a nation we idly sit by, allowing these helpless lives to be tortured to death. Please support Christ from the Womb. And lapel ribbons are only $7, or receive a free lapel ribbon when you purchase a t-shirt for just $20, or a wristband for $5. With 2 or more wristbands, just $3 each. To order, visit csctalkradio.com or P.O. Box 73, California, Missouri 65018. Support Christ from the Womb and be seen, so the unborn can be heard.
Oh, how sweet it is. JLS Research, makers of the all-natural and effective no-BO deodorant, offer CSC Talk Radio listeners a common-sense alternative to deodorants containing aluminum and other harmful chemicals. No-BO is a unique deodorant, fully guaranteed to contain only natural ingredients. It doesn't treat the symptom called body odor. It treats the cause of the condition, underarm bacteria. We all must use deodorant, so why not choose the most effective deodorant while steering clear of all those containing harmful chemicals? Only a small amount of no-BO is required to be effective, so you can finally enjoy the sweet smell of success. No-BO deodorant offers a full guarantee to eliminate body odor or your money back. The sweet smell of success is no-BO. Order now, no-BO.com, or just give JLS Research a call at 334-343-2001. No-BO.com. You're listening to CSC Talk Radio. This is Beth Ann. I'm visiting today with Mike Cutler. We're in the final segment of today's show. And Mike, as we were going into the break there, we were talking again about some of the things that that you as an INS agent and others that go through. And, the other thing that we talked about was the catch and release, and then we talk about the sanctuary cities and all these things that, to me, it just makes sense to keep America first, keep America safe. It's not just about people crossing the border on the southern border. And, I had a really nice email last week when I was going through the 10 points of Donald Trump's speech, coming from one of my listeners across the northern border. Thank me for what I was doing. They're dealing with this, too. We're not the only ones dealing with this.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got to take care of what's going on here. But they're dealing with it as well, and it's just their citizens are just as frustrated as many of ours are. The lies in the media are really disturbing. They really are. And
the lies in the media, the editorial policies. Look, you have people, and let me go to this because this is a very important point. By the way, there's also catch and release from within the interior. If an immigration agent arrests somebody and there's no jail space and you turn them loose but you take credit for the statistic, what does that mean? Nothing. It just emboldens people. Hey, I got caught and then they released me. Wow. Look, we didn't work for Fish and Wildlife. This wasn't about tagging them and releasing them back into the brook. These aren't fish. These are people who violated our borders. The 9/11 Commission was so clear on this. But you see, what the problem here is that there's too much money being made. The politicians that get those campaign contributions have been bribed.
I think
That's
there.
basically what it is. I couldn't take a cup of coffee.
I think bingo right there. We talked about the money under the table with the drugs that are coming in.
And then you'll see Clinton. And by the way, here's something else the media doesn't talk about. And I wrote about this for Front Page. And I also wrote about her for capsweb.org. Please go to those websites. She subjected herself now to blackmail. Imagine if Russia, Iran, China has some of those emails she desperately tried to get rid of. And she didn't just hit the delete button the way you or I do with our mail. If that happened, they'd say, okay, she had too much email, she was trying to clean up the mess. Fine, we all do that. She went to the bother of getting one of the most high-tech programs possible to obliterate the emails. Obviously, she didn't want them to see the light of day. Imagine if they resurfaced in the hands of an ambassador from a country that's hostile to America, and she gets elected president, God forbid. And I say God forbid, and here I am, a registered Democrat. This isn't about left or right. It's about right or wrong.
Well, and it's like you said, the Democrats and the Republican parties. I call them a monopoly. They're a monopoly. They're both corrupt. That's the one thing that's, and I hope that we're correct, that's refreshing about Donald Trump is because he's not truly a party man.
No, but here's the point. What happens if they approach her and say, we've got those emails, and if you don't want them to see the light of day, this is exactly what you're going to do. And if you don't do it, we're going to drop these off with every newspaper in the world tomorrow morning. What would she do? You know, we were warned when we came on board as agents, and I only had a top-secret clearance. I say only. It's not an insignificant clearance, but compared to what the Secretary of State gets to see, her materials were far more sensitive.
But she doesn't understand that C means classified.
If we acted in a way that undermined our credibility and compromised us, we could be in a world of trouble and hurt America. Imagine what she's done, and then you have Trump who comes along and says, we're going to change the dynamics. And that's why everyone is scared to death, because too many people are getting too rich. But here's what no one's paying attention to. We've destroyed the middle class.
Yes.
We destroyed the consumer base for all the goods and services, and if you wonder why the economy isn't improving, it's because Americans are continuing to lose their jobs and suffer wage suppression. So how do you buy anything when you can't even afford to put 3 square meals on the table? You see, they've killed the goose that was laying the golden egg because the major players, Gates and Zuckerberg and Wall Street, are so eager to get cheap labor to maximize profits for this quarter, they're not paying attention to long-term what they've done to the country, what they've done to the middle class. You had John Kerry going before a graduation at Northeastern University saying, don't look inward, but look at China and India. They're building their middle class. Was he the Secretary of State of the United States or the Secretary General of the United Nations? Americans need to vote for any politician that puts America and Americans first. Very simple.
And it only makes common sense. You would put your family first. You would put your neighborhood first. You would put your
your children first.
You know, you're always going to do that. Or you should. If you're not, you're kind of a jerk.
Well, could you imagine somebody being criticized into a burning building to save their own child, and they're being told, well, why didn't you save someone else's kid first?
Interesting point. Interesting
right?
point.
And look, poverty is pervasive. Half the world's population, 7 billion plus people, half live below the poverty line. Can we bring 3 billion people to the United States? And at what point do you say we've got to stop that line? Well, I think we're there now. We have 95 million unemployed Americans of working age. The administration lies and says, oh, we have a 5% unemployment rate. Right, if you ignore 95 million adults, that's insanity. These numbers could only be prepared by Bernie Madoff. I'm convinced he's sitting in his jail cell, you know, cooking their books. These lies have got to stop. You have a president who releases drug dealers into the communities. You saw those terrible riots in Baltimore and St. Louis. These are kids living in poverty with no hope for the future. They're being manipulated because they're angry and they're frustrated and they're probably scared. And instead of getting the criminals and the drugs off the street, you have a president putting drug dealers back on the street. And I would argue that if you're a drug dealer, you are committing violent crime because you're destroying the lives of so many people. And guns and drugs go together because it's a violent trade. I spent half my career with the Drug Task Force. I had desks at the FBI, DEA, and ATF. And we always found guns and violence as a component of drug investigations.
You know, Mike, we're about out of time, and it's just always a pleasure to have you with me and to talk some common sense and to hear from somebody who really was boots on the ground, you know, what's going on.
Thank you so much for having me. You do a great service for everybody by providing the information.
It's about common sense, and it's about putting ourselves first. I end the show every day with Bring America Home, and there's nothing that'll bring America home better than for us to start looking to one another for the answers and for compassion.
This is one of the points
compassion, not from necessarily.
One quick point.
Sure,
you know,
absolutely.
as we approach the anniversary of 9/11, I want you folks out there to remember that the second greatest number of agents assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force are immigration agents. There's such a clear nexus. We cannot protect our country and our citizens if we don't secure our borders from every aspect and enforce the immigration laws from within the interior. American lives are hanging in the balance. Please also remember this when you vote for your senators, your congressmen, and your local officials. They need to put the lives of Americans ahead of all other priorities.
We need to be voting smart, not voting parties. I'm done with the monopoly. We need to be voting smart, and that's how we will come together. Just look at what's going on. Thank you, Mike, for all that you've done. It takes all of us, folks, all of us, to bring America home.
Dr. Michael Kaufman isn't holding back.
designed to lure the enemy into aerial combat.
The fighter sweeps, unlike the bomber escorts, were purely air-to-air, designed from the very, very start to find their fighters and shoot them down.
21-year-old Lieutenant John Bolt took Boyington's independent and aggressive fighting style very much to heart, single-handedly destroying a number of Japanese troop barges in the harbor at Bougainville. He later received a commendation from Admiral Halsey for that mission.
Boyington had a knack of surrounding himself with the pilots, and he liked the way they flew. And if you weren't aggressive, you didn't fly with Pappy Boyington.
But the kind of spectacular success Boyington and his pilots achieved in the air battles over the South Pacific did not come without a price. The Black Sheep Squadron lost 10 pilots during the fall of '43. But Boyington himself seemed to be impervious to Japanese bullets. By December, Boyington was approaching the record of 26 aerial victories recently achieved by an old Pensacola friend.
During the earlier campaign over the skies of Guadalcanal in the Pacific War, a pilot named Joe Foss in the Marine Corps had tied Eddie Rickenbacker's record of 26 aerial victories. Boyington had 14 as a Marine from his first combat tour, and then claimed that he had 6 victories as a Flying Tiger, and a few days before Christmas, downed 4 planes in one flight, which is another major accomplishment. So now he had 24.
The former Flying Tiger and his command made for good headlines back home. Everyone wanted to know when he was going to break Joe Foss's record of 26 victories. Boyington could hardly come back from a mission without a microphone being thrust into his face.
Major Gregory Boyington. In air battles, he shot down 25 Japs. And now, in a raid against Rabaul, the Marine Corps ace was going after that record of 26.
Boyington was in really high spirits. And one of his pilots voiced some concern about Boyington, almost as if his flame was a little bit too bright, that he was starting to worry that Boyington was pushing too hard and was going to be shot down.
But Boyington told his men, "Don't worry about me. They can't kill me. If you guys ever see me going down with 30 zeros on my tail, don't give me up. Hell, I'll meet you in a San Diego bar 6 months after the war, and we'll all have a drink for old time's sake." On Monday, January 3rd, 1944, Boyington took off from Tarokina Airfield on the island of Bougainville in command of 46 American fighters, including 7 of his own Black Sheep, in a dangerous fighter sweep over Rabaul. Far from their home base, Boyington's fighters lured the Japanese pilots into a tumultuous battle.
We were attacked by a fairly sizable number of Zeros, well more than 10 or 12. It just broke up into just a big gaggle, and I can recall seeing Boyington shoot down an airplane.
The shooting down of that Japanese Zero raised Boyington's victory tally to 26 and tied him with Major Joe Foss.
The irony was that Boyington and his wingman, George Ashman, did not come back from the mission. No one had heard of Boyington or Ashman. No one had reported anything. They had just disappeared. And over a period of hours, people all of a sudden came to the realization that he wasn't coming back. We mounted out search and rescue missions and so forth, but the last I had seen of him was when he'd shot down one airplane.
It was a shock to all of us when he was, but he was the last person in the world that we thought would ever be shot down.
Major Gregory Boyington disappeared into the St. George's Channel area on January 3rd, 1944. It was big news, demoralizing both Americans back home and the men of his Black Sheep Squadron. Though there was no actual confirmation of Boyington's death, America still mourned the loss of one of its most famous fighter pilots.
We never expected it would happen to him. All of a sudden, all of us, I'm sure I did in particular, felt very much more mortal and said, if this can happen to him, there's nobody better than he is in the air, that there but for the grace of God go I.
The Marines still had a long and tough fight ahead of them on land and in the air. The bloody beaches at Saipan, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa became the final resting places for thousands of Marines. It would take nearly 2 more years of fighting in the Pacific before the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki brought Japan to its knees. On August 29, 1945, while American warships steamed into Tokyo Harbor, a swarm of U.S. Navy landing craft headed for Amore Island. The small island set inside Tokyo Bay was the location of a prisoner of war camp. As the landing craft approached the beach, scores of elated Allied prisoners of war swarmed out to greet their liberators. Among them was a grateful Marine Corps pilot, Major Gregory Boyington. He had been a captive of the Japanese since he was shot down nearly 20 months before.
When he was shot down and theoretically lost, nobody ever really gave up. They said, if there's one guy that can make it, this old dude probably can, and by God he did.
Boyington had gone down fighting, and then, as he had always predicted, emerged like a phoenix from the ashes.
The Marine Corps flew everybody they could, every black sheep they could get to San Francisco for a 3-day wild-ass party.
They wheeled the portable stairway up to the side of the plane and flung open the door, and there he was. He was the first one off, and of course he came down the stairs, and we all grabbed him and threw him up on our shoulders and carried him over to the ready room where the press descended on him.
21 of his black sheep sat enthralled as he took them back to that fateful air battle almost 2 years earlier. He told them how he had shot down 2 more Japanese Zeros, breaking Joe Foss's record of 26 planes. Seeing his wingmen swamped by Zeros, he dove his Corsair into the fray. But he suddenly found himself hotly pursued by almost a dozen Zeros.
I was shot down between Riball and New Ireland, over the St. George Channel. At dusk, a submarine surfaced just alongside of me, and I thought, oh boy, here might be an American sub. Then I saw a tarpaulin stretched around the conning tower, and there on the side was painted a great big meatball. I says, uh-oh, Boyington, the jig's up.
Now a POW, Boyington was transferred among several local Japanese prisons before finally being sent to the Japanese mainland. After reuniting with the Black Sheep, he was quickly overwhelmed with adulation, promoted to lieutenant colonel, and informed that in his absence he had been awarded the Medal of Honor. On Friday, October 5, 1945, he stood before President Harry Truman and received the medal along with 15 other Marine and Navy heroes, now proclaimed the Marine Corps' top ace. At 32, Boyington was on top of the world, but he quickly slid back into his old alcoholic ways. A Portland, Oregon newspaper reported Boyington assailing a war bond dinner crowd belligerently. He said, "I know what you want me to talk about. You want me to talk about how I shot him down. I was flat on my back at 40,000 feet. That's what you want, isn't it? I'm here to sell war bonds. Buy war bonds. Why? I don't know. Just buy them." Within a few months, the Marine Corps managed to find a reason to work him into an early retirement. Almost overnight, Boyington was forgotten. For the next 12 years, he hopped from one dead-end job to another. He was a professional wrestling referee, beer salesman, insurance salesman, and part-time commuter pilot. But many other members of Boyington's former squadron continued on in the service. An ace in the South Pacific, John Bolt stayed in the Marine Corps, shooting down 6 North Korean MiGs during the Korean War.
I'm the only jet ace in the Marine Corps, and the only two-war ace, double ace, in naval aviation. I enjoyed the combat, liked it, just like hunting as far as I'm concerned.
Bruce Matheson also stayed in the Marine Corps and retired a colonel.
And I went to Vietnam, where I was the commanding officer of a Marine aircraft group, a helicopter group, and I flew several hundred missions there in a Huey gunship with the Huey Squadron.
The Black Sheep's wild man, Chris McGee, traveled an entirely different road.
McGee continued being colorful after the war, flew for the Israeli Air Force, and used to say that wouldn't Willie Messerschmitt turn over in his grave if he saw the Messerschmitt being used by the Israelis against the Arabs.
Occasionally, Boyington still lived up to his own colorful reputation. In 1949, at an American Legion aeronautics dinner, he found himself helping out as a bartender when he ran into his old friend, fellow Marine ace and Medal of Honor winner, Joe Foss.
I said, "Les Rassel, I wanted to whip hell out of you." He reached around me and he put these knucks between my shoulder blades, and I just kicked off that wall, and we just plowed U.S. senators and dignitaries out of the way.
Next morning, Boyington knocked on Foss's door, talking about what kind of fun they'd had the night before, and Foss just couldn't believe it.
Boyington periodically made attempts at sobriety and went through 2 more failed marriages. In 1958, he wrote his memoirs, originally started years before, under the tutelage of his former administrative officer, Frank Walton. The book was published under the title, Ba Ba, Black Sheep. While he did take occasional liberties with the facts, such as perpetuating his inflated success with the Flying Tigers, his self-deprecating style made it a huge success. On the last page, Boyington quoted F. Scott Fitzgerald with what had become his own personal mantra, "Show me a hero, and I'll prove he's a bum." The book eventually sold more than 100,000 copies. There was even talk of a major film set to star Robert Mitchum, but the project never made it to theater screens. Boyington once again found himself drifting back into obscurity.
The drinking resumed, and his marriage failed, and he found himself struggling again for years and years.
In 1976, the legend of Pappy Boyington and the Black Sheep Squadron was resurrected for a whole new generation with a 1-hour network television show based very loosely on Boyington's own book. Boyington served as the show's technical advisor, though he actually provided little in the way of correct historical advice.
It was lost on Greg that if I got this show on NBC, that it was going to be good for him. The last thing in the world he was going to do is say to me, "Hey, wait a minute, you got to do it this way or that way." Then he had his eye on the bigger prize, get this thing on the air. However you think you can get it on the air, that's fine with me. Just don't put me in a dress.
But the men who had served valiantly with him during the war initially took great offense to their depiction as screwballs and misfits awaiting court-martial.
It portrayed all of us as just a bunch of bums.
2 things were factual about it. The squadron designation was 214. The commanding officer was Greg Boyington.
In the long run, we've done them a service, I think. They were heroes. I mean, that was a tough game they were in. I know it's hard to be portrayed as something other than what you really are, but my excuse is I'm in the entertainment business.
The show started a new career for Boyington. He showed up on the air show circuit, where he sold and signed his books and charged for personal appearances. Yet, even in his late 60s, he occasionally went back to the bottle.
At 68 years old, he was driving back to Fresno, and he got pulled over by 2 highway patrolmen, and he took them on, and they had to mace him.
But even this hero, who once seemed to rise from the dead, was mortal. Living in Fresno, California in 1986, the 73-year-old Boyington was suddenly hospitalized with cancer. In January of 1988, Ned Corman and Fred Loesch, two former Black Sheep Squadron members, drove to Fresno to see their dying former commander.
We walked in, and here's Pappy in his bed, and he's just horribly emaciated, just skin and bones. And I leaned over to him and said, Pappy, you get your butt out of here. You've been in tougher spots than this. And he says, well, Ned, he said, there are times when you get in a situation where the odds are completely against you and you can't do a damn thing about it. And I walked out of that room and the tears were just, I couldn't stop crying.
On January 11th, 1988, at the age of 75, Colonel Gregory Boyington passed away quietly in his sleep. He was buried with full military honors in Arlington National Cemetery.
He certainly was an icon. I mean, he was an icon because, to begin with, you know, icons have to be larger than life, and Greg was. Icons have to have cool nicknames, and Greg did. You can't be an icon and be a pretender, you know, because you'll get busted. And Greg wasn't a pretender.
VMF 214, the Black Sheep Squadron, was the first Marine aviation unit to receive a presidential citation. Under Major Gregory Boyington's leadership, the 54 members of the Black Sheep shot down 97 Japanese planes during the course of their service in the South Pacific. Few pilots have worn the globe and anchor of the United States Marine Corps with more honor than the men of the Marine Fighting Squadron 214 during their service in World War II. Despite their colorful and often contentious commander, they were still a team. Their accomplishments flying those inexpensive, piston-driven Corsair fighters helped America decisively win the war in the Pacific.
Out of the 54 in the 2 combat tours, we're getting down to a few. In fact, I wonder who's going to fly the last mission. I hope it's me.
Yep. Well, hey, that's all for me. I'm going to go in and catch me some Z's, but like I said, don't fret now. Darn it. Don't fret now, and we'll be back tonight after the chores are done. Let's see. But like I said, you know, I really wonder, I hope that Cody shows up and she's going to be all that we expect her to be. And I had somebody during all that other that called me and said, well, what do you expect her to do? Come in and just stick her feet in your face? And I says, not necessarily. I said it'd be nice if she did. But I says, that's not the idea. And one of the things that the club, I guess I was concluding myself a little bit too soon there, but the fact of the matter is the club is looking at doing several things on this stuff anymore. Because anymore, it's a sad state of affairs. It really is. When you think that even for a second that a handshake or just giving your word that you're going to do something, whatever the hell it is, would be enough. Say you're going to pay a bill, you pay a bill. Say you're going to show up to do a job, you do the job. But anymore, you got to have a piece of paper with a signature on it, to where where if something does go haywire, to where you can hold the other person legally liable if they don't show up, especially if they don't show up and then want a paycheck. We had one of those here in Evanston. One gal I met through her mother, who worked at a local cigar tobacco store here. And I think she was mainly on board strictly for the the idea of a bar. that we were going to do that kind of went fizzle. But anyway, well, how the hell are you going to get a 22, or even, I don't even think she was that old. How are you going to get a 20-year-old inside of a bar to work? It ain't going to happen. But anyway, so maybe it's different if they work there as opposed to pouring brew. I don't know. But the long and short of it is she was going to work there. Well, I says, to make that happen, we got to make the radio gig happen. So she was supposed to show up and do some on-air stuff and whatnot and doing some liners and actually just second seat it. That means co-pilot this thing. But anyway, the long and short of it is she never did a damn thing. And then she come back going, well, I want a paycheck. Bullshit, you didn't do a fucking thing. Just because you show up don't mean shit. Unless you actually break a sweat doing something, some sort of effort or some work, don't expect to get a paycheck. And even after that, I kind of felt bad, so I went to the club and I said, well, you got to give her at least a day's wage or so. And you know, the weird part about it is, no matter how many ways I tried to get at it, I called her, I don't know how many times. I called her mother, I don't know how many times. I emailed her, I don't know how many times. And said, if you want a paycheck, get your ass over here to the house. She never showed up, so. But then she goes around town bad-mouthing the club and me and the station and everything else, and I thought, fuck you. And that's a story for a different time. But what I'm trying to get at is this. The club's going to start doing some weird stuff anymore. It's coming down pretty hard on a bunch of things because it's just tired of the bullshit. Granted, we're not the normal 9-to-5 everyday place. Likewise, we're not the normal damn radio station. This is not standard radio. Okay? This is Southern Fried, extremely rebel type radio, and at least media. And we don't play the ball game exactly quite like everybody else does. We kind of writing our own rules here. And so the people that come in had better have a slightly warped personality, or it ain't going to work. But even so, if somebody actually comes in and kicks the tires and actually sits in the driver's seats and takes it around the damn block, if they get serious enough to actually want to become employed here, we're going to do this other new weird thing. We're going to have a letter of intent. First of all, written by them in their handwriting, or type it, whatever, with their signature that is actually notarized. So that if I say, hey, you said you were going to be here, if they don't show up when they said they were going to be here by their letter of intent, see? And then they come back and say, I need a paycheck. If they didn't show up, I've got grounds to say, hey, she promised to be here, she wasn't here, no money. It's that simple. You know, now, and talking about money, and I ran, like I said the other night, I run square into this, and it pissed me the fuck off. Now, and the first part of it is, whoever, ever recommended to this kid, I think he's a kid, who turns wrenches, and that's okay. Nothing against somebody who turns wrenches. I do it. Nate does it. Rick does it. Everybody does it. You know, that's in and around the club. So there's nothing wrong with that. But here's the deal. This gal, I guess went into some service station somewhere around here, a Shell station. I don't know if there's The only one that I know is that one down there, the other side of the damn horse track place. But anyway, goes in there and says, hey, where's the radio station? He wanted to buy some advertising. So for some reason, the lady there gave him our phone number. So the guy calls me up on the phone, says, hey, I want to advertise on your station. Okay, fine. I told him that it was not the normal station, that it was both streamed and in the syndication and satellite as well as over the air. Okay, he showed up, and guess what? He bought a month's worth of advertising. Well, apparently he had second thoughts, went into the station downtown, the other competing station, and they refuted it, and all of a sudden he wanted his money back. Well, excuse me. First of all, there's no damn contract signed. That's going to be something else that's going to come up. Now, the reason why we only charge $100 a month for commercial time, unlike other stations that charges so much, anywhere from $25 to $100 per commercial, is I figure it like this. I know from being in business myself in a few markets where we haven't had a station, that by the time you get a facility, whether it's a shop, a restaurant, shoe store, I don't care, and you pay for your lights, the rent on that facility, or the mortgage payment on it, whatever, and the lights and the gas and your parts and your employees and your taxes, which are constantly going up, there ain't a hell of a lot left to market with. And especially telephone anymore. I know cell phones are popular, but in a lot of places, it's your local wired Ma Bell type Baby Bell company. So by the time you pay all that, there ain't a lot left. So, being small businesses, our business people ourselves as club members, we thought outside of the big box stores like Home Depot, Walmart, and so on, if the local little guy comes around and says, hey, I want to buy a local ad on a local station to get my word across, why charge him $2,000 or $3,000 on a big maybe that somebody will hear that commercial, as opposed to charging him $100 flat rate and see if it works. Give him a little bit of space to, I don't know, be able to understand or be able to test it, whatever that is that he's testing. See, to me, that sounds a lot better than, it's kind of like renting a car before you go buy the damn thing. Rent it, see if you like it, then go buy it. If you don't like it, turn it back in, get something else, and lease something else different. You know? Now, do I think that this kid is going to do any better than us? Bragging a little bit? Probably not, because not everybody's got the reach we do. But on the other hand, this is what it is. But people are never honest anymore. And people are scared of something they don't understand. If it's not the traditional whatever it is, they get nervous. Like I said, I don't completely understand it. Maybe it's one of those things to where you got to have something on your chest or something that says this is it. or, to where I know everything, and I don't know everything, and a lot of people think that I do. And, sir, I think all of us kind of get a little bit of a big head every once in a while. But the long and short of it is, the only person, and he is a person, although we can't see him, per se. We can if we look, but the bottom line is, the only perfect person that has ever walked this planet, ever, was Jesus Christ. And the only perfect force is his Father and our Heavenly Father, God Almighty. And about there's always that bunch of adages that says stuff like, the bird that flies too high usually ends up in a cow platter. And that's pretty much it. I mean, the higher, the more important thing, or more important that you think you are, eventually the Lord's going to make something happen to where you're going to realize, hey, stupid, you ain't that important. You are not all that. I am. Meaning our Heavenly Father. He's going to show you that he is the ultimate force, and don't try to challenge him. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't strive to be like him. In fact, he wants us to be. It doesn't mean that we can't aspire to achieve what he has, because he wants us to. He tells us that in his word. But by the same token, by about the time you start going out there and thinking, with a big old puffed up chest and a stiff neck, and all of a sudden start thinking, I'm invincible, Lord's going to show you real quick. You ain't. So, yeah, am I excited that Cody might be here, or at least somebody? Yeah. Do I think that that's really going to happen? More than likely. But like I said, I hate to get too damn excited. Because every time I get excited about something like this, is about the time that somebody either A, doesn't show up, B, doesn't answer the phone, and C, does not answer an email. And that's the other thing. And I put it in a blog probably about the latter part of July. When it comes to stuff like employer, employee, whatever, I will be friendly, I'll be congenial, I'll do all that. But understand, I am not your best boyfriend or best friend forever. I am your boss. I don't care necessarily that you completely love me to death or throw your arms around me and pull my britches down and play with old Herman. I don't care or not. But when that light comes on and it says on air time, I expect you to be in that studio doing your job. If I give you a task to perform for the station, I expect that task to be performed. If you don't do it, and I have to do it myself, I might as well go do the damn thing myself to begin with. Save the money for me and the club, and say, adios, honey. Now, I grant you, in some markets, not necessarily this one, but most markets, unless you've got a hell of a damn track record, somebody that starts on with the station, if they're making $20, $30 an hour, that is pretty close to being a premium wage for broadcasting. Most of them are making pretty much really close, probably about $5 to $10 less than that an hour on entry level. I know that KSL, for at least 6 months to a year, that's our biggest competitor in this market. They have at least a 6 month to a year intern where you don't make a fucking dime. You work for them so they can and show them what you got before they stamp their brand on you and say, okay, here's your show. Here's your studio. Unless you've got a real good track record with all kinds of awards and things that can be verified and all that, unless you're that way, they're not going to just let you in there at top dollar. And even then, it's going to be somewhat debated. But like I said, you can tell I'm starting to wear out. So anyway, I will see you back here. Actually, I'll see you on live stream overnight, and I'll see you back here starting at 1700 hours, which is 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Until then, bye-bye, y'all.
Now, I didn't have to let this Kaepernick thing go. I've said my piece. 61 million people heard me loud and clear. But turns out this thing has extended beyond one selfish little baby. Role models exist in many forms. Kaepernick is a special case. He's inspired other sports stars and role models to disrespect the country and our symbols of pride and freedom. High five, buddy. I hope you feel good inside. For those that think I won't criticize soccer star Megan Rapinoe because she's white, well, think again. Sunday night in Chicago, Rapinoe decided not to stand for the national anthem either. It was a little nod to our buddy Kaepernick. Rapinoe is gay, so she knows what it's like to be disrespected by our nation. So she's going to kneel for the anthem from now on in hopes to really get this conversation going. Okay, Megan, let me help you with the conversation. You look at that flag and hear our anthem and it disgusts you, huh? Because the United States of America doesn't respect your liberties as a gay person? Hey, Megan, do you know what they do to women and gay people in many countries around the world? They stone them and throw them off buildings. This nation, the Stars and Stripes you don't stand for, yeah, there are men and women overseas fighting under that flag against enemies that would kill people like you. Remember that while you take a knee. In fact, I'd like to share a story with you, Megan and Colin. This weekend I was at the USC-Alabama game. Americans coming together of every race, religion, and background to watch a good old American college football game. Well, after the game, a young lady approached me in tears. Why? Well, during the national anthem, a group of black women in front of her were sitting, oh, but not just sitting, laughing during the anthem. When she asked them to show some respect, they looked at her with disgust and said, "You don't know what black people go through in this country." Well, fair enough, but here's the deal. They don't know what she's been through. Her boyfriend, a Navy SEAL, just returned from deployment. He lost one of his teammates in Iraq. See, that flag and that anthem might mean a little something different to people like that. It's more than a cloth and a song. It's a symbol of those that have sacrificed for those stars and stripes in that anthem. This is the Kaepernick effect taking root. Like it or not, kids, hell, even adults, look up to athletes like Kaepernick and Rapinoe. When they choose to make a political statement by disrespecting the country, well, they send the message that somehow it's noble or righteous to sit during the anthem, or worse, laugh through it. It's sickening. I might not know what it's like to be a black American or a gay American in this country, but I know what it's like to be an American. And I know we have the right to sit and laugh at the anthem, but just because you have the right to do it doesn't make it right. And no matter how many diss songs you write about me, no matter how many names you call me or threats you place on my head, I will stand and speak up for the United States of America, not because I am exceptionally brave, but because I stand and speak for those that are. God bless America. From Dallas, good night, and take care.
Somebody once said that wherever I went, I just set up my own Marine Corps. There was a reason for that. I didn't much like the way they had it set up before I got there. My guys stayed in more trouble on the ground and in the air than any other squadron in Marine Corps history. We were a haven for drunks and screw-ups and troublemakers. But it didn't seem to matter to the nurses. And God knows it didn't matter much to me. Some of us lived, some died, but we were always black sheep. Just name a hero, and I'll prove he's a bum.